my name is Anushka and I am an astrologer and intuitive life coach. And today I wanted to just talk to you about shame and not allowing it to stop you from giving your gift to the world and from being who you truly are. And I think this is just so important, especially in today's times. There's so much awareness now about things like narcissistic abuse and codependency and what it is to be the black sheep in a family, and toxic parenting and, you know, really toxic family dynamics. And so many of us have been exposed to childhoods that were less than loving, less than supportive. And so, you know, a lot of us carry with us these wounds, and a lot of us carry with us shame, and a lot of us who are actually empaths and light workers tend to go through really hard times as children, and that as a result we can find ourselves carrying a lot of shame, carrying really bad feeling about who we are as a hangover from our childhood, you know. And so how does shame come about? Well, you know, there are so many videos up there, you know, that will tell you so much more and go into this so much more in depth. But basically, you know, shame is an absolute debilitating thing to feel, to carry around with you, because shame is basically a complete separation from self. It's a denial of self. It's really a feeling of, I am not good enough. I am ashamed of my very being. And we were not meant to live in shame. We are beautiful souls. We are an aspect of Source, of God, of Great Spirit. And we're supposed to shine our light. And Source is not supposed to feel shame about itself. But unfortunately, some of us come into families where there is toxic abuse going on, and very negative patterns in which our parents, or it could be our step parents, whoever it was you lived with, project their own darkness, their own unresolved issues onto us. And the problem is, as children, we find it hard to differentiate between what I have done and what is me. And quite often when we're in these toxic families, they often don't take the time to say to us clearly, or communicate clearly and compassionately to us that there is a better way to do something. Quite often what we'll hear is that we are bad, is that we are wrong, is that we are stupid, we aren't good enough, we are a burden, these kinds of things. And all of these things translate to the child as, I am bad. And this leads to chronic internal shame, and it's a shame for who you are at your core, and that can be so debilitating, and it can destroy that beautiful light that is in you. It can really eat you up. And I know this from personal experience because, you know, I went through it, and I wanted to talk quite openly with you about this, and something that I feel quite passionately about, which is that, you know, nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody should allow any errors they feel they may have made, any mistakes they feel they may have made, to stop them from moving forward and sharing their unique gift with people. And why I say this is because, in my personal experience, I grew up in a very mixed up environment, and my first kind of 5-6 years were quite happy, were very happy in fact, although my mother was not around, but I was with my father, and we had a very close and lovely relationship. But then that turned extremely toxic when my stepmother came along, and it was just the most confusing environment. And I started to experience cognitive dissonance. I started to close off and close down and shut down. I completely shut off my emotions. I was living in a constant state of anxiety, always trying to preempt other people's feelings and moods and what they were going to do. And this is kind of what can happen with us. This is how an empath can be shaped. I'd like to use a different word other than empath, but somebody who's very tuned into the energy around them and to the energy of others. That's how that can become shaped, is because you're so used to having to take the temperature of the environment around you and of other people's mood, that you almost forget, or you just become completely unaware of the fact that you have emotions yourself, because there's no room for you to feel anything. You're not allowed to express anything. So this was the kind of environment I grew up in, and it was extremely toxic, and I was kind of in and out of this situation and all over the place until the age of about 17, when I moved out. And even then, you know, I still had these people in my life, although not as close, until my early 20s. And what happened with me as a result of my childhood experiences, I carried deep shame. I thought I was bad. It's hard to describe to somebody who hasn't been through it, but those of you who have, you know, because I was very much a scapegoat of the family. I was made to be the black sheep. The moment my two little younger brothers came along, I became the scapegoat. And so I carried with me all of this baggage. And as a result, that led to me in my early 20s really making a lot of decisions from a place of really not knowing myself and a place of being very wounded, and acting out, doing things. I couldn't honestly, if you'd asked me, I couldn't really tell you why I did them, but I didn't realize at the time I was acting out of my programming, and I was acting out of these feelings that I am bad. I was told that I was a liar, that I should have been left in the dirt with my mother, that all sorts of things, that I was stupid, that I was selfish, and eventually you start to believe these things and you start to act from them unconsciously, not realizing that they're actually running your life. And so for me, this is what happened during my early 20s. And so I can openly admit and put my hands up and say I caused a lot of destruction in my 20s. I caused a lot of destruction. I always had a good heart. I always had a good heart, but I just was not in control of myself. I was so tormented and so confused that really any relationship I got into was never going to work, and quite often I would pick people who were either codependent or narcissistic, and had their own issues. So you can imagine we would come together and it would just be a mess. Usually alcoholism would be involved, drugs would be involved, and the whole thing would just go to bits. I have been the perpetrator, I've been the and the victim, and I've been through, in my short life, I've been through a lot, and I've experienced abuse from all different sides, and I can openly say that I know that I have been abusive, you know, towards others, in my state of unconsciousness, in my state of coming from these kinds of these negative and dark programs. So of course, as I started to awaken, for me, one big thing that came up was this intense feeling of shame. I suddenly realized the impact I had had on people who I loved, people who I had loved, people who I had cared about. I suddenly realized the impact that I'd had on them and the hurt that I'd caused. And I mean, this was part of my journey, you know, and I really, really felt awful. But for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to feel it. And I had to go through this long process, and I'm still undergoing it now, and I don't think it will ever stop. It's part of my growth. There'll always be something to undo, and something to transcend, something to bring into higher vibration. Transmute, sorry, is the word I was looking for. But for me, a big part of it was facing the reality of what I had been doing, why my life was such a mess, why there seemed to be nobody there for me, and coming to terms with it. And that's where the healing process started to begin. And then I started to look back and see, wow, okay, yeah, you had a pretty screwed up childhood. In some ways it was really dark. And you know what people used to say to me, people who didn't know me so well would say, oh, it's amazing how well you've come through considering the childhood you had. They didn't know what was going on the inside. They didn't know what was going on in private, you know, and soon that all came out and there was nowhere to hide. And I'm thankful for that. But the reason I wanted to tell you this my own personal experience briefly, was because after this, and whilst doing some of this work, you know, I started to realise that, and I'd always had this feeling that I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people heal. And even as a child going through these things, I remember being very aware that I didn't want any other children to feel what I was feeling. I didn't want any other children to go through the abuse I was going through. It gave me it almost expanded my heart in a way I can't quite explain. And it gave me the sense of purpose, this kind of knowing that I had to do something with this. Even when I was going through my madness, a tiny part of me knew that really I should be, one day I was going to have to work with this. And so as I've started to heal, and as I started to heal, I started to realise that perhaps this was part of my gift, to help people. And with that then came this issue. And it was that I would think to myself, oh my God, think about all the awful things you've done in your life. Think about all the mistakes you've made, all the people you've let down, the relationships that went horribly wrong, you know, the hurt that was caused and all of this. And I would be really hard on myself at times. And, you know, who are you? Who are you to help anyone? Who are you to go on YouTube and say, hey, I might have something that could help you? Who are you to proclaim anything? I condemned myself for my actions, and this is almost like and this wasn't healthy, this isn't good, because this is me, you know, now I don't need people coming down on me from the outside, I'm doing it to myself. And this is what we can do sometimes, because when you grow up in a shame-based environment, it can make you act, when you get older, it can make you act from places of shame and do things that perhaps you're not proud of. But at some point you have to forgive self and you have to move on. And you are not every single thing that you have done. You are what you have taken from it. And if you've transmuted, if you have transformed your childhood experience, if you transformed the things that perhaps even that you've done that you're not so proud of, and you transform them into something higher because you've found the deeper lessons in them, and you've healed, and you've actually made it into something that is worthy of giving as a gift, something that actually helps you, that heals you and could help and heal others, that is not anything to be ashamed of. You are not continuing that cycle, you know. You actually have something of value to offer because of the fact that you've been through it. So I think it's so important that those of us who go through these kinds of traumas don't beat up on ourselves for the mistakes that we've made in our lives. At the end of the day, and this is how I tend to think about things now, you know, it's very easy to criticize other people. It's very easy to say, oh, well, I would never have done that. How could they do that? How could they act in such a way? They're crazy. It's very easy to dismiss people and to judge them. But until we have genuinely understood what it might be like to experience life through their eyes and in their soul and in their incarnation, we cannot say anything. And this is what you have to understand. If you've experienced shame and you feel like you want to give to the world, you want to show who you are, but you feel like, well, who am I to do that? Don't judge yourself. You don't need to. There's no need for you to. At the end of the day, it is perfectly logical that somebody who has been through what you have been through would experience and attract to them and do the things that you have done. Sometimes there is no other way. And I can honestly look back on my life, and although, you know, and I can say, you know, when I look at it soberly and honestly, I don't see what else I would have done. In the place that I was in emotionally, I did the best I could do, and sometimes my best was awful because I felt awful and I didn't know any better really deep down. Did I know logically right from wrong? Of course I did, but I didn't know any better deep down in terms of what on earth was going on with me, what was driving me. You know, you want to choose right, you want to choose this option, but what is driving you takes you completely away from that. But it's about not beating up on ourselves for the choices that we've made, and understanding that our journey is a sacred one, and that in every single bit of pain and every single hardship has been a lesson and has been a gift. And if you've taken that and you're working to make it into something of value for yourself, then shame is never relevant anyway, in my opinion. We don't need it. It actually holds us back and it stunts us, and so it's unnecessary. Please, if you have been through these things and if you have then found yourself acting out as a result, please do not lay more shame on yourself, because you have something extraordinary to give the world. We are all in a place now of great change. This is a time when we are being asked to connect to our hearts. So many of us are being called upon to help heal ourselves and heal each other. So please do not lay any more shame upon yourself. Understand that anyone in your position would have done what you had done had they been through what you had been through. And now it is time for you to just take the gifts, take the learning and transmute that. Heal, and if you have something special to share, don't hold yourself back. You know, for a long time I worried about doing these videos on YouTube, because I thought, well, what if somebody who I've had a bad experience with sees them? What if someone from my family, somebody who was part of the abuse in my family, what if they see them and they see me mention them? What happens then? What will they think of me? You know, what if somebody who I've acted badly towards sees these? Will they say, oh, she's got no right to talk about this because of what she did? You could go on forever worrying about what other people might think, might do, but at the end of the day, that is not centered living. And that is not where your healing lies. And the most important thing is that you know who you are. And the most important thing is your own self-image. And when we care too much about the opinions of others, which we can never truly know anyway, it debilitates us from moving forward. And it's a big sign that we're maybe not quite ready to present ourselves to the world. Maybe there's some more healing to be done there, because if you're still caring too much about what someone might say, then you're outsourcing your power, you're giving your power away. And this is what I'm trying to say, I suppose, is you are so powerful. Each of us is so, we hold and contain so much power within us, and we give it away so much, especially when we've grown up in these very abusive situations. And this is about coming to a place where you no longer give that power away. You don't give it away to shame. You don't give it away to what other people's opinions might be. You understand that you've had your own unique journey. No one else will completely ever understand it. It doesn't matter. It's not for them too. It's your journey. Do not allow anything from letting you shine your own light, however that might be, because everybody has got something unique to offer, and it's something I feel really passionate about. You know, we all make mistakes. Some of us might make more than others, but who cares? Because at the end of the day, it is all a process. You know, do we have empathy and compassion for the people that we hurt? Of course we do. But that does not mean that we have to be beholden to those mistakes for the rest of our lives, because then we just stop ourselves from moving forward. So that was just what I wanted to talk about today. And yeah, I hope you're all doing really well, and I hope everyone is just on that path of healing and sharing. I love how much everyone is sharing with each other on this YouTube community. It's amazing, and it's so brave and it's so bold to see people opening up their hearts, talking about their own experiences and empowering each other. You know, and it's almost like the veil is being lifted, the facade is breaking, and people are going, do you know what? It hasn't been perfect. Let me be honest with you. Let me share with you. Let's heal together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So thank you so much for joining me. If you want to know more about me, then feel free to check out my website. I'll put a link somewhere up at the top here. Feel free to check out my website. But I will be doing more videos, and take care of yourselves. I hope you're all thriving. Take care. Bye-bye.